Hello and welcome back to County Carlow Military Museum's YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Irish Mercantile Marine or Merchant Navy during World War II, or the emergency as it was known in Ireland. So prior to World War II, following the War of Independence, there was no encouragement really to develop a merchant navy in Ireland. In 1923 the fleet consisted of 127 ships, but that number was allowed to decline annually until it reached 56 in 1939. Only 5% of imports were carried on Irish ships. The reason that Irish shipping was in such a state can be attributed to a number of factors, including economic depression, government policy of self-sufficiency, and the Anglo-Irish trade war. De Valera thought it was an important status symbol in the modern world for a country to procure her own goods and be self-sufficient. Ireland depended on the use of foreign ships for most of its trade, which was not an issue throughout peacetime. While Irish-produced turf was used as the main source of fuel for the duration of the emergency, other fuel would have to be imported from abroad. With the declaration of a state of emergency on 2nd of September 1939, it dawned on the government just how isolated the country was, and with limited shipping compounding this impending supply problem. Adding to the fleet. With 56 ships, at the outbreak of the war, Ireland would purchase or lease 15 more. Up until war was declared, most Irish ships flew the ensign of the British Merchant Navy, although there were exceptions such as the Wexford Steamship Company, whose ships flew the tricolour. Some ships that were registered in Ireland but owned by British owners were transferred to British Royal Navy service, while some ships that could be seen as British flew the tricolour, for example ships owned by Loyalists in Northern Ireland. Unfortunately, the crews would soon discover that neither the tricolour nor their neutral status would save them from mines, bullets or bombs. Trade routes. Irish shipping can be broken down into 3 trade routes: the British route, the Iberian route and the Atlantic route. At the outset of the war, the most important Irish ships from a British perspective were their cattle ships. While the shortest of the trade routes, the British trade route was no less dangerous due to the presence of mines and a German-imposed blockade on Britain. For its part, Ireland depended on Britain for commodities such as coal. The Iberian route was a trade route between Ireland and Portugal. In November 1939, Roosevelt signed the Fourth Neutrality Act, forbidding American ships from entering the war zone, which was defined as a line drawn from Spain to Iceland. Cargoes intended for Ireland were shipped to Portugal. It was up to the Irish to fetch them from there. This trade route was nicknamed the Lisbon Run. Many Irish ships would go to Britain first with Irish exports, buy British exports and then sell them in Portugal, mainly Lisbon, before picking up imports bound for Ireland. Sometimes the cargo may not have arrived yet, or may have been sunk en route to Portugal, so it was up to the individual crews to be enterprising and make the trip worthwhile. The Lisbon Run was undertaken by small coastal trading vessels, commonly called coasters, which were not designed for deep-sea navigation. Small and having low freeboard, these ships were designed to never be out of sight of land. At the outset of the war, Ireland had no ships capable of crossing the Atlantic, and with many of the nations it depended on for transatlantic trade being brought into the war, Ireland once again had to solve a problem that they had created. The company Irish Shipping was formed to solve this problem, purchasing ships from Spain, Palestine, Panama, Yugoslavia, Chile and the United States. Many of the ships Irish Shipping acquired were abandoned off the coast of Ireland. 3 ships from Estonia also joined the Irish fleet after Estonia was annexed by the USSR. While they were docked in Ireland, the crew refused to return home to their homeland. An Italian ship, Caterina Garamolich, which was trapped in Dublin since the outbreak of the war, was commandeered after Italy fell to the Allies. On the conclusion of the war, it was sent back to Naples with a cargo of food as a gift from Ireland to Italy. Some of the ships that Irish Shipping acquired could be described as fit for nothing but the scrapyard. The top transatlantic imports were wheat, coal and phosphate for fertiliser. In the line of fire. For a small country, the Irish Mercantile Marine saw its fair share of action and was victim to attacks from both sides, although it is worth noting that many Irish crews risked their lives to save sailors and airmen from both Axis and Allied countries. At the start of the war, Irish ships joined convoys protected by the Royal Navy. The advantages were protection and cheaper insurance. The Irish crews soon found out that the advantages offered by convoys were minimal at best, so they chose to sail alone. The British route. The British and Irish steam packet companies Munster, which operated the Dublin to Liverpool route, struck a mine approaching Liverpool and sank. There were 200 passengers and 50 crew on board. A few hours later, they were all rescued by the collier Ringwall. 4 were injured and 1 died later. While approaching Britain, the Meade was stopped and inspected by a British Naval Control Service ship. While being inspected, the Meade struck a mine, sinking both ships and drowning 700 cattle. The Germans requested that Ireland cease exporting food to Britain in August of 1940 and declared an area around Britain the scene of warlike operations. It is believed that the attacks on Irish shipping and bombing of Carlow, County Wexford, was to reinforce this request. German propaganda being broadcast into the UK declared that Dundalk would be bombed if trade continued, which it was in 1941, yet Ireland continued to trade with the UK. After this ultimatum was ignored, the Germans attacked the Loch Ryan on its return to Carlow. She was strafed and bombed repeatedly by 3 German aircraft, and while badly damaged, survived, in part thanks to its cargo of China clay absorbing the blasts. Germany acknowledged the attack but refused to pay compensation for the damage as she was in the blockaded area. Ardmore was torpedoed on the 11th of November 1940. All 18 crew were killed. Inishfallen mined and sank, leaving Liverpool for Dublin on the 21st of December 1940. Of the 220 aboard, 4 died. On the 2nd of April 1941, a British convoy was attacked by German bombers, 2 miles south of Tusker Rock. Distressed rockets were seen by the Carlow, which altered its course to assist. A burning oil tanker without survivors and a crippled collier, the Wild Rose of Liverpool, were found. The collier was slowly sinking, had no power, her lifeboats had been destroyed by the bombing. The Carlow took the larger Wild Rose in tow and rescued the crew of 13. The Wild Rose was beached on Rosslare Strand to prevent her sinking. On the 7th of October 1941, while sailing from Swansea to Wexford, the Carlow struck a mine in Cardigan Bay. At the outset of the emergency, there were restrictions in reporting attacks on Irish shipping to the public, but Frank Aiken, government minister whose responsibility included censorship, reversed this policy. His intention was to show Germany that the Irish people knew who were attacking their ships and they did not like it. The Iberian route. The city of Waterford joined the convoy OG-74 but collided with the Dutch tugboat and sank. The crew were rescued by HMS Deptford and transferred to the rescued ship Walmer Castle. Walmer Castle was bombed 2 days later and 5 of the city of Waterford survivors were killed. 2 Limerick Steamship Company ships, Lahanrone and Clonlara, were part of the Nightmare Convoy OG-71, which left Liverpool on the 13th of August 1941. As merchant ships of a neutral country, they did not have blackout facilities. Fearing that this would make the whole convoy visible at night, the British convoy commodore positioned the Irish ships in the centre of the convoy. On 19th of August, the Norwegian destroyer HNOMS Bath was drawn away from the convoy and sunk by U-204. 3 minutes later, U-559 sank the British merchant ship Alva. Clonlara rescued 13 survivors from Alva. 2 hours later, U-201 sank the Commodore ship Aquila and the British cargo ship Siscar. 2 days later, U-564 sank Clonlara. HMS Campion rescued 13 survivors, 8 from Clonlara, 5 from Alva. 8 merchant ships, 2 naval escorts and over 400 lives were lost. 5 of the convoy's surviving merchant ships reached Gibraltar, 10 retreated to neutral Portugal. The crew of Irish Poplar sailed home alone, having been in Lisbon and witnessing the survivors of OG-71 come into port. While City of Dublin brought Clonlara's survivors to Cork, La Haronne joined convoy HG-73. 9 of the 25 ships in that convoy were lost. Seeing how the Royal Navy had failed to protect merchant ships affected the decision of Irish crews not to sail as part of convoys. Captain William Henderson of Irish Elm, returning from a transatlantic voyage, reported, circled by 2 German bombers, probably Condors. They circled for a considerable time and inspected closely, but didn't molest. The incident had given the crew great confidence in the protection afforded by the neutral markings. In 1944, the Cymric vanished without a trace while on the Lisbon run. It is unknown what happened to her or her 11 crew, as no wreckage was ever found. The most plausible answer was that she struck a mine or was attacked by a U-boat. The Carlow, whose crew had rescued British sailors from German bombers in 1941, was attacked by a Polish night fighter squadron of the RAF. The de Havilland Mosquitoes repeatedly dived on the Carlow for 20 minutes, badly damaging her after sustained attack. A Royal Australian Air Force plane was flying nearby hours after the attack. The badly damaged Carlow requested an escort from the plane, but was told that would not be possible. The Carlow hobbled back to Cove, where it was discovered that without its cargo of coal absorbing much of the cannon fire, the ship would have been surely sunk. The British authorities denied their involvement in the attack at first, but the evidence of the British ordnance in the coal made them admit to their fault. The captain of the Carlow would never walk unaided again after this attack. In December 1943, having been repaired in Cork, the Carlow once again came to the aid of a crew in distress. 3 German boats, the Z-27, the T-25 and T-26, had been sunk by the HMS Glasgow and HMS Enterprise. More than 700 men, most of them dead, were in the water. The Carlow spent 10 hours picking survivors from the water. While 4 men died aboard, 168 were rescued. The Carlow's cargo of oranges also saved the rescued Germans from dehydration. This was a remarkable rescue, as the Carlow was only a small ship of 43 metres long. The crew of the Carlow also refused to return the prisoners to either German or British authorities, instead bringing them to Ireland, where the rescued Germans were interred in the Curragh. The Atlantic route. The crew of the Irish Oak became uneasy after her engine failed and she was left behind by the convoy SC-55, dead in the water, to wait for a tugboat. Their experience, coupled with the experience of other Irish crews, meant that they preferred to cross the Atlantic alone rather than in convoy. In October 1942, the Irish Oak responded to a British SOS call. The Stornest, a straggler from its convoy, had been torpedoed and the crew were boarding life rafts in treacherous waters. Irish Oak relayed their SOS and searched for survivors for 10 hours in the inclement weather. They continued their search even after British ships responded to the SOS. No survivors were found and the crew of 29 was lost at sea. In May 1943, on its way home from Tampa, Florida, with a cargo of fertilizer, Irish Oak was followed by a German U-boat for several hours. Even though there was smoke from a convoy visible on the horizon, Irish Oak was clearly travelling alone. The U-boat stayed alongside Irish Oak until night fell and the crew turned on the ship's lights. Seemingly satisfied with the ship's neutral status, the U-boat left. As dawn broke, Irish Oak was torpedoed. The ship started to sink and Irish Plain, Irish Rose and Irish Ash responded to the SOS. Once the crew were safely in lifeboats, more torpedoes were fired at the ship. After 8 hours, the crew were rescued by Irish Plain. When the hostilities were over, on the 16th of May 1945, Eamon de Valera, in his speech to the nation, said, "To the men of our Mercantile Marine, who faced all the perils of the ocean to bring us essential supplies, the nation is profoundly grateful. The An Bon Service Eigendala for An Service Vertrachta, or in English, the Emergency Service Medal for the Mercantile Marine Service, was awarded to all those who had served 6 months or longer on an Irish registered ship in the emergency." On the 24th of September 2001, a plinth and plaque embossed with the Irish tricolour was erected to commemorate those crews lost on neutral Irish registered vessels in World War II. The plaque is viewable in the National Memorial Arboretum in England. In Dublin, an annual commemoration is held on the 3rd Sunday of November. The Cork commemoration is held on the 4th Sunday of November in the former offices of the White Star Line, and in Belfast the commemoration is held on the 2nd Sunday of May. We hope that you enjoyed this video. While it wasn't an in-depth, extensive look at the Irish Merchant Navy or Mercantile Marine, it is a very good jumping off point, and included at the end of this video you will be able to see the sources that we used to compile this video. We'll put some links to them in the description.